everybody. I'm Sean Rounds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wiebe of the Winnipeg Free Press. We're also going to have Sportsnet scout and former bigwig of, teams, the Florida Panthers, the guy who found Alexander Barkov. Jason Bukala is going to be on the show. Last time he would have been on the show was the draft. He was phenomenal. One of those guests that you just kind of marvel at all of the stuff they bring to the show. So super happy to have him back on. Game after the Jets getting back into the win column against the Chicago Blackhawks, 3-1 victory. I think you saw a lot of what makes Connor Bedard special. You saw the Jets getting back to a game that gets them into back into the win column. I think it's one of those good news, bad news games. I don't know about bad news, but let's say pros and cons. I thought there were some pros to that game, cons to that game, overarching. I didn't think there was as much separation between the Winnipeg Jets and the Chicago Blackhawks as there should have been. But I think at some point you're just kind of you're picking away too much at it if you're going in that direction. But before we get too deep into this, I feel like I need to address something. Some of you may know what this is talking about. I'll make it clear what I'm talking about here. Seems there's been a little bit of a situation where my name has come up in a somewhat a viral fashion online. Connor Bedard was in yesterday and he was asked some questions. One of them, the first one along these lines, about the vicious rumors that were going around about him. People are questioning me. People are very, very angry. And they're asking me why I would ask that question and why there would be any value in that question. I think that's a great question. And I will say this time and time again. Your journalism should be pressure tested. So people questioning me and why I would bring this up, I have absolutely no issue with. If I'm not able to defend what I'm doing, then I'm not doing my job right. So people asking why I would ask that question, here we go. You guys wanted the behind the scenes stuff that we talk about. Let's get into it right now. I used to do news. The hardest job in the world is talking to a parent after they lose a kid. Time and time again, I was given that assignment when I did news. It's a really tough thing to go and ask a parent to talk on the news about something like that. And I know that a lot of people will look at it and say it's the news self-serving trying to do this. My take on it is there can be lessons in things that go wrong. And if people involved in that want to weigh in on it, it's your job to go up and have the, to go up and offer them that opportunity. 7 out of 10 times people used to talk. I used to say to people when I asked them, I said, if it was me, I wouldn't talk. I'm not the kind of person who would want to air my something terrible that happened in a public forum. But a lot of people wanted to. And the lesson I took away from that is sometimes when something bad happens, people want to be able to talk about it. So I learned as a journalist that I thought it was my job to put that out in front of people. This situation with Connor Bedard and the BS rumor that went out about him and his family, it was sickening. It was ridiculous. I thought a lot of hockey fans and the keyboard cowboys got far too comfortable with it. And I thought asking Connor Bedard in the way that I did it, I had said, I'm not going to dignify the stuff that was said, but you are a player that's in the spotlight, a white hot spotlight, and that spotlight went into a very dark place in this case. I want to know what you take away from that and what it's made you think about living under that spotlight. Along those lines, it's not going to be word for word. I thought he gave a phenomenal answer, but my idea behind asking that question is to take a family that was victimized and allow people to understand how it affected them, and then maybe think twice about the way that this carried out and the way that this thing spread like wildfire and went crazy. Okay, that's my take on it. Online, people got really upset. People, suggested that I was trying to perpetuate that rumor. I don't think I did, but in reflection upon doing so, I wanted to make sure that the parties involved weren't hurt. So what does that look like? Today, I talked with the Hawks organization. I talked with their PR department. I talked with members of the broadcast team. I'm not going to name names. If those people want to, have their name drawn into the conversation, they can weigh in. I'm sure they just want to move on from this. I talked to a multitude of people about this situation, let them know exactly what I just told you about the motivation behind why I would ask that question. question. I can tell you right now, the conversations where I had with that people, they understood where I was coming from. They had no problem with the question. Connor Bedard, I was told, was expecting the question to be asked and wanted something on the record with the media about it. So providing him with the opportunity to respond to something terrible that had happened was what I had envisioned doing. From what I hear, I think it's something that worked out well. It clearly hasn't worked out well online. There's a lot of people, a lot of hate, a lot of vitriol coming because of the accusation. I'm going to be upfront with this. There's a few local members of the media that I think stoked that fire and pushed it forward. I've had conversations with those people about that. And one thing that I've made clear going forward with they and with anyone in the local media or anyone who I know in this situation, if they would have just asked me, like if they've got issues with what I say or how I say it, if they would have asked me my motivation behind it, I think that this situation would not have gone the way that it did. I think they were careless in how they handled this. I think that certain people who put in a lot of effort in trying to make sure that this was handled with care are bearing the cost of that happening right now. To me, I want to move on from it, but I wanted to make sure that it was out there. Journalism should be pressure tested. I will say this again. It should be in this situation. I just don't think that the way that it was put out there properly represented the care that was put in this. I'm glad that the Blackhawks organization, the people that I deal with, I'm on good footing both before and after this situation, and that were not issues with them in the way that this was handled. I'd like to move on from that. And I should get going on this. Jason Bukala is already in the green room. So we're going to bring in Kenny really quick here. We're just going to get him talking about the game so that we can move on from this situation. So let's do it. Let's bring in the man with the best music in the business, everybody. Here comes Kenny. Ken Weed, you look like $1 million like you always do. And of course, that's because of our friends Frank and the boys down at Vittorio Rossi on Corridon Avenue, who dress both of us and do a damn good job of it, I must say. You want to go in that direction? You want to look like Ken Weed? You want to look like Sean Reynolds? I'm not talking in the face. Just focus on the suits, people. I don't want to drive you away. I don't want to harm Vittorio Rossi here. Look at the clothing, people. Look what they put together for us. Great job done by Frankie and the boys. So head on down to Corridon Avenue. Loudly proclaim when you get in the place, Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will do you up right, everybody. Ken looking like $1 million, like I said. The Jets looking a lot better. And I don't know if even that's a fair thing to say. I don't think they looked that bad on that 3-game losing streak. But I'm sure the scoreboard looked better for the fans here tonight. What do you take away from that game?
Yeah, right on. First and foremost, thanks for sharing that. I know it's been a bit of a storm around here the last few days. I also spoke with the Hawks PR, and I know there have been some, I think, unfair things said about the market and the journalists in that market based on some. I was in that conversation in the scrum with Bedard also. In terms of the game itself, thanks for sharing the context. As far as the game, we'll get into this a little bit with Jay, but honestly, this is a game that on the schedule, it's one of those games, honestly, that teams want to get through. And now that sounds ridiculous, but there's not a lot in it for a team like the Jets, because if you win, you're expected to win, and if you lose, the sky is falling. So what I think the Jets were trying to accomplish was to snap out of that, not let a 3-game losing skid become 4. They were trying to get their defensemen more involved, which I think they were able to do on this evening. And thirdly, they were trying to get some more 5-on-5 scoring, and 2 of their 3 goals came at 5-on-5. So I would say they checked a lot of boxes in terms of their to-do list. Do I think it was their template game? No. Do I think it was closer to their template? Yes. Ultimately, after falling behind, the Jets didn't fall apart. They stayed within their structure for the most part. A couple things fed into the Blackhawks transition, but quite frankly, even though the game was close, I don't think it was a closely played game, if that makes any sense. Connor Bedard worth the price of admission. We'll certainly get into that with Jay, who's watched him quite a bit more than we have, Sean. You were at his first game, but just on the way up. I thought that the Jets line combinations continue to be a work in progress. We'll get into that a little bit more. I thought Connor Hellebuyck, it's a tough game for a goalie, right? So everyone's going, well, why the hell was Connor Hellebuyck so out of the first goal? Well, when he thinks the puck from Kurashev is getting through, it hits a skate, and all of a sudden it looks like he's completely out of position. He still gets his paddle on the Bedard shot, which was kind of ridiculous in itself. But overall, Hellebuyck, not a lot of work, but steady. And Sean, we've been talking about his numbers all year long. And guess what? By the time the final buzzer sounds, Connor Hellebuyck is 11-6-1. His goals against is .249. His save percentage is .912. So for a guy who was sub 900 and rocking a GAA over 3, Connor has quickly turned the tide and sort of stabilized. And this is an important game for him because of the soft goal he let into Darnell Nurse the other night. Right. I personally think Laurent Brossoit will start on Monday. One of the hints that we saw this week, he was wearing the RC, the padding, the old school pads. But I just think that it's his turn, it's his time, and this is a game that the Jets will try to build off of the positives they did in the game. There are areas they need to clean up. Important to just end the losing skid. They can take a little bit of an exhale and prepare for a really tough opponent on Monday night.
Good stuff, Ken. Let's bring in Jason Bukala. We don't want him waiting for too long because I'm honestly surprised, Ken, that he said he has to come in on our show. Again, he's
just busy.
Too many times. Well, yeah, you're right. He's a busy guy. But he doesn't be needing to make time for chumps like us. But here he is doing it over and over again. Jay, I got to say, I still am wowed by the performance that you gave us at the draft last year, over the summer. It's one of my favorite shows that we had last year, and I wasn't expecting it because draft shows, I think, can be rather boring. Boy, oh boy, when people like you dig into it, they're probably the most exciting shows for you, and I can see why because of that. But we're going to ask something entirely different from you here tonight, although we're going to get into what prospects like Cole Perfetti and Connor Bedard are turning into. But just give me your takeaways from the game here tonight. Jets team desperate to get back in the win column. Chicago Blackhawks team that's been playing better hockey, at least getting better results as of late. What did you take away from that one?
Even in a 3-game losing streak, I wasn't really put out with their effort per se. I find that the Jets, even on their off nights, if you want to call it that, generally speaking, as a group, they're a pretty competitive team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They compete between the whistles and they work. So this is a team, guys, in my opinion, just like from a scout's eye, they live on the margins. And what I mean by that is that, I'm with you, Kenny. I didn't feel like it was a really close game today. I really, especially in the second period, immediately they put their foot down to start the second period, and Chicago gave up several odd man rushes against in the second period, right? So they really established their game then. But here's the thing. I struggle with the margins. We need a guy who can win more faceoffs in all 3 zones. We need to start with the puck more often. The first goal against, obviously it's a muffin up the middle. That doesn't usually happen, but it happened. And boom, it's 1-0. But another team, let's call it the Dallas Stars or, the Vegas Golden Knights, whoever, that type of a team, they're going to go to another level off a turnover like that. So, yeah, it was good enough today, but come the beginning of the week, they're obviously going to have to be a lot better. But listen, guys, the third line for the Winnipeg Jets, in my estimation, when I start scrolling around the league and I start looking at fits, to me, honestly, this might be one of the best third lines in the entire National Hockey League. And I don't say that lightly. Like with Niederreiter, Lowry, and Appleton, how much value are they getting out of that group there? They don't really see any power play time. They're all plus players. They play heavy hard. They empty the tank. They go to the paint looking for garbage. That's a hard group to play against. And tonight in the first period, I thought by far they were their most established line. Chip Chase, wear down the opponent. I love that group there.
Okay, let's dig into that some more, Jay. I thought Nino Niederreiter tonight was, it's not exactly one of those nights where as they've done a lot of times this year, they've made the difference on the scoreboard. But I just thought they, just absolutely gave a noogie to the Chicago Blackhawks every single time they were out on the ice. I'm glad you said that, because I've been thinking more and more about this third line and its place across the rest of the league, because Jets fans know they have something special here, but let's be honest, every market looks at their own guys and probably overvalues them a little bit. But I want to know, if you can dig in a little bit deeper and give me an idea of where you think this third line fits in some of the other kind of comparables you may see around the league.
Well, let's just look at some of the Canadian franchises alone. Like if you look at the Toronto Maple Leafs tonight playing the Boston Bruins, in the 3-hole, they're going to roll out guys like Yarncrook, Camp, Robertson, mixes of these types of players. Clearly, their team is built differently than the Jets, right? Like the Jets have traditionally, like Chevy and his staff have always traditionally valued kind of a heavier set roster. They like to grind you down a little bit. And you know what? They have to, because the LA Kings of the world, like that type of model of a team, an awesome playoff matchup, let me put it in perspective, would be the LA Kings versus the Winnipeg Jets. That would be an absolute grudge match. It would be like 4th and goal from the 1 all night long. You know what I mean? So across the league, there isn't really a comparable in terms of all 3 guys being like Niederreiter is the smallest guy in that line. He's 6'2", 209 or something like that. Right. So Lowry's 6'5", and what is he? 218, 220, and Appleton's in that mix too. I struggle to find a comparable who can move, transition the puck, battle along the wall, go to the paint, and score at even strength. All of those things. I really do. Now I will say this. So again, I don't want to sound like I'm being, that guy, but we need to start with the puck more often. So, Lowry's up at about 50%, 49 and change. Let's call it 50%. But we all know that when you're involved in any type of face-off in this league, it sounds redundant and it's scout speak, but coaches, it drives them crazy when you don't start with the puck. And when you're on the penalty kill, you got to win big draws. When you're protecting a 2-1, 3-1 lead in the third period, you need to win and start with the puck all over the place, because this is a line, guys, that if they win it anywhere, let's say in the neutral zone, they win it, they chip it deep, there's a real opportunity. They might pin the opponent down there for 35, 40 seconds, just wearing them out on the perimeter. It's I can't understate the value, because what it does is it opens up more space for your skill guys the next time they roll over the boards. If you have a defense pair on the other team, to call it their top 4, that match up against Lowry's line and they get beat up for 35 or 40 seconds, they haven't recovered by the time Shipley's line rolls out against them the next time. It's super important.
Jay, there's a perfect example. I'm going to give it to you right here, Ken, but perfect example that a number of games ago during the Jets 5-game winning streak, I believe it was. But that line goes out and just absolutely wears down the opposition, holds it in there, gets 3 or 4 scoring chances, and then just in a perfect fashion, Lowry leaves. It's the long changes. Mark Scheifele walks on, steps into the zone, is given the pass. They're too tired. They can't. He just walks straight. I liken it to them rolling out the red carpet for him, and he walked in and he scored a goal. Just a perfect encapsulation of exactly what you're talking about. Ken, how do you think that played tonight? Because I know that at one point I just turned to the person who was sitting next to me and thought, like, Nino is everywhere tonight, but on the score sheet, it's funny that on a night like tonight that line does so good. Nino was just so on his game. It was almost like I wasn't seeing Lowry and Appleton, but they were doing their thing as well.
Yeah, Nino, 5 shots on goal today. Sean, I agree with you. He's all over the place. And I mean, Mason Appleton has a easy tap, but Zaitsev gets there first. I mean, that was a very good defensive play. It's interesting. I mean, I'm sure both of you noticed Rick didn't actually start the Lowry line against Bedard on the first shift, which I found kind of confusing. And then he went to Lowry, and then they scored. And now, obviously, it wasn't the Lowry line's fault, but I thought that they really almost took Bedard almost out of the game at 5-on-5 because it was played in the offensive zone, or he was having to play and defend for the majority of the time. I thought that was a big factor in the game. Bedard, 3 shots on goal, 5 attempts. But Jay, we've been debating back and forth, Sean and I, and obviously we know Nino Niederreiter is a 7-time 20-goal guy, and I think there will be times this year when he will be required to jump up into the top 6 to give them a boost, maybe to give a Perfetti and Ehlers a bit of size. But one thing's caught my attention here. Nino's the kind of guy that has gone through incredible hot streaks, but also dry spells. I wonder if you think putting him with Lowry and Appleton has helped reduce the dry spells because he has his work boots on, whereas maybe at times when he's been in the top 6 playing with skilled guys, he kind of gets away and floats to the perimeter a little bit more. He seems to be involved every single shift in the blue paint, on the forecheck. I wonder if you think that's been a factor for him since coming to Winnipeg specifically.
Well, I think you're onto something there, Kenny. So ideally, or pardon me, I shouldn't say ideally, guys who have been 20-plus goal scorers in the league, they tend to identify themselves as such, okay? And I'm not saying like he could still be that guy, it's fine, but his approach is 100% different. When you are playing a top 6 role and you traditionally come into the league as a skill guy, let's just call him a top 6 skill guy. He's big, he's strong, but you know that he's got good puck touch. You know he's got skill to do some things off the rush, and he found success doing that, right, in other stops. When you can simplify your game and really complement the other 2 guys around you, that elevates your game in a weird kind of way. I know it sounds like it's a backwards conundrum, really, but the simpler you are with it up and down the ice, and you know that your other 2 line mates are going to do a lot of that heavy lifting, and hey, I'm going to chip in with that too, but if need be, I could be that guy, Now, Apps has gone beyond him, really, hasn't he? Like, even in the first period tonight, he had that puck deep slot kind of quick catch and release. I don't know, just missed the bar or something. It was close, though, right? This guy's getting chances all night long. But I like Niederreiter in the 3. I wouldn't break up this line for all the money in China right now. Like, I would not do it. Like, I don't touch this group. And Velarde, let's just say this. Velarde's come back, okay? Nifty little play off the rush tonight. Slick little drop to Scheifele, right? Absorbs, I believe 2 checkers to make a slick little play. I love that about him. He's not a burner, guys. He's never going to be a burner, but he's a big body with great puck touch. So he attracts checks, and he's going to dish to those other guys. So that will make those other guys better as well.
Sean could not be more thrilled with your answer, Jay, because we're definitely on other sides of the argument. And again, I'm not saying break them up. I just think at some point the Jets are going to need him. And I love the size that Velarde brings to play alongside Cole Perfetti. That's one thing, the element they've been missing, a little bit of size. Nemestikov, plays with some snarl to his game and a bit of bite, but it's one thing that they've kind of been missing. And I really love the way that Velarde plays, his board battles. I mean, he's not a physical guy in terms of banging you into the end boards, but strong on the puck and such a gifted shot. And we saw the passing ability, unbelievable toe drag on Alex Vlasic, and then the pass to Scheifele, perfect. But where do you think Velarde fits best? Because right now I like where he is, but I think ultimately he's going to end up with Scheifele and Connor, just because that I love the speed element of Ehlers, and that line has shown some flashes. But I just think that the overall package of Velarde is best suited to sort of feed into the transition game of those 2 players.
So I like that. I'll go one step further. Excuse me. Velarde has length. Ehlers has speed. So like Vlasic's a big body, guys. I think Vlasic's he's 6'4", 6'5". He's a big body. The Hawks have a big defense core. So when you have a forward with length who can make plays in and around bigger bodies because he also has length, that opens up more space for your other 2 guys. Ehlers is a darter. So he's an in and out guy. He'll spin off a check, but they will jump on him, those longer defenders, and it's easier to take. He's a skill guy. Don't get me wrong. I like the guy, but he's easier to take away time and space because of that. So Velarde gives a different look. So I like that, Kenny. I like that look with Scheifele and then Connor. My only concern, I will say this, is that Kyle still off the puck as much as he snipes and everything else. I think he might be a -8 on the year. I don't want to go over the top and have that debate because we all know sometimes plus minuses aren't deserved. I get it. But there's some float off the puck sometimes from Kyle, right? And when you don't have Velarde, who's a burner on the other side, coming back as quick as maybe an Ehlers, you're going to maybe struggle occasionally defensively. So It's a long-winded answer. I like the bigger body. I like that more length somewhere in that line. So I think Velarde's a good fit. I would definitely give that a roll.
What are you seeing out of Cole Perfetti? Because I can tell you this, Jay, whenever I talk to the Sportsnet folk in Toronto, and maybe it's the Sammy Cosentino effect, because I know that he's in on those panels and he's singing his praises, and rightfully so. But everyone's checking on Perfetti. I know he's one of those kind of players that left kind of like a memory and an image behind in the OHL that a lot of people expected great things from him. And what I see from him is the kind of game that he played in the OHL. He's finding a way to transfer that same game as at the NHL level. And I find it interesting with some prospects. Sometimes they have to shape their game around the NHL. I feel like Perfetti's finding a way to shape the NHL around his game.
I'm glad you brought him up, because I was making several different notes. I've been breaking down Perfetti pretty religiously over the last 2 years, just trying to spin some setbacks, whether it be, injury or just fitting into the NHL game. The thing with Perfetti, guys, is like on that goal tonight, the 3-1 goal, I know it's obscene, right? He kind of floats across and, he's got blade up and it hits his blade. But you'd be amazed. We've all seen it. We've all been around the game long enough. It's amazing how many skilled guys have that knack for that happening, right? They're just in the right place, right time, stick in the right spot. That's a hockey sense. That's a feel for the game. Perfetti has that in spades. He's got points in, I think, 13 of his last 15 games, if I'm not mistaken. It's somewhere in there. And there's more to give there still. There's more to give. I call him a cerebral, offensive, second layer guy, trending up to potentially be first layer guy overall as he planes out. But even in the OHL, I wish Sammy was here. We could pull out the gloves. But even in the OHL, when I went to watch this kid play in Saginaw, there was nights where I'd be like, wow, he's pretty good. But, and then I look down on my score sheet, he had 3 points or something. And then I go back and I break down tape and I see how he's finding quiet ice or he's finding things on the perimeter. He's a nice complimentary guy for what they got going on there in Winnipeg. He's not going to be a banger. He's not going to be a guy that's going to be super, super elusive all the time off the rush. But I'm going to tell you, fellas, he's finding a way to contribute. This is a good news story.
Hey, I don't want to wait too long. It's a Jets show, but we got to talk about Connor Bedard. Of course, he scores a goal, 11 on the year, which is like, if it was any other rookie, you'd be talking about how crazy this is. The expectations that come with him, I think people are just thinking it's almost old hat and don't realize how important it is. Talk about like a guy finding the right place at the right time with that goal that he scores. That backhand pass that he makes from the boards across the ice, I mean, how many guys in the NHL are capable of seeing and making that pass? Mark Scheifele made a similar pass on a goal to Kyle Connor earlier on this year. And to me, it took like all of his decade of NHL experience, all his life to kind of get to that stage. Connor Bedard is walking in with that built in at the age of 18.
Guys, there's not a lot of players in the league, believe it or not. It's the best league in the world, but there's not a lot of players in this league that can go tape to tape with authority on their backhand side. I don't care if you're a defenseman, forward, or otherwise. Like it's an elite talent that he has there. Long stick, obviously tons of leverage, vision, rips it backdoor off his backhand like it's a forehand pass. I mean, I don't know. It's you kind of run out of adjectives, superlatives, if you will. Like it's just unique. It's fantastic. It's outstanding. Sidney Crosby's got great puck touch on his backhand too. But the difference is, if you want to get nerdy like me and break it down sometimes, like so that pass by Bedard was like a long reach backhand, where Sid, he's almost got like a snap backhand. I know that's like it's a snap backhand, tape to tape, of course, because he's Sidney Crosby. But I don't know. This guy is he doesn't have a lot to play with there, fellas. He doesn't have a lot to play with. And he ran out of gas today. I thought he was pretty pedestrian in the last 2 periods. But, going up against guys like Lowry and these other players, it's going to get harder for him. This is an exceptional player. He's probably going to win Rookie of the Year. But trust me, we all know this. In the second half of the year, I think this is the first game the Jets have played the Hawks, right? This year, is it?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
3 more against them. Every time he plays Winnipeg from here on out, every game is going to be even more important for the Jets. It's just going to get harder and harder for Bedard.
Yeah, I think it's funny. And just talking with Jets players going into it, guys like Lowry and the guys who love the game, like veteran guys look forward to seeing this guy on the ice, right? It's one thing to watch the highlights and say, oh, that's a great play. Oh, what a backhand sauce. But like, you don't want to end up on the other side of the highlight reel, which is why I think guys play those guys so much harder. And I mean, you're so right. I mean, imagine in 3 years when they sign some free agents or some of those draft picks that they have in the next 2 years in the first round or 2 rounds start to blossom. And he's playing with like legit 40-goal guys, not guys that are filling out the roster, with all due respect to Anthony Beauvillier. But man, it was my first live viewing, and I've been, players circling games in the calendar. This game I had circled on the calendar. I couldn't wait for this to happen. Kid was very impressive. But Jay, like we talked about before the year, like people that thought he was just going to go out and score 60, like it's a hard league when all the attention is on you. And I think Bedard's done a great job of being at 11 through this point. But have you changed your projections for him at all, or do you think sort of what we were talking about before the year? I think it's pretty much bang on right now.
Yeah, I haven't changed it much. Like I said, it's going to get a lot harder, guys. And let's not forget to, like, young people, I don't care how elite you are as an athlete, when you start traveling through this league for the first time, the travel, your sleep schedule, your reset schedule, which is really important, as you start to switch through time zones. There's a lot of moving parts. People see what they see on TV, as a fan, you're like, wow, this guy's a great player, whatever. But, there's days, the three of us, we wake up in the morning and we've got articles and hits on TV and all this stuff to do. And we're barely rolling out of the sheets because we're we're not feeling great. It's going to be the same for him. He's going to go through some ebbs and flows through the course of the year. So let's keep it in perspective. I don't like that team. That second period for me tonight, even in the third period, I felt like they were pretty passive with their forecheck. Chicago was. They looked tired already to me, and it's going to get even harder for him.
Sorry, there was one point. Oh, go.
No, you go, and after that, I got to
go
just back.
on that point that Jay was making, there was a situation there where there was a loose puck, and the Hawks defender, I'm not sure which one it was, but could get a stick on it, and he could kill the play and get it out of the zone. And to your point about being passive, sat back on it. I just thought to myself, the way this Jets team was churning tonight, right? Especially that third line, getting in, churning with the puck the way they were. I just knew it was a big mistake. Now, I don't think they got scored on, but it's like if you can kill the pressure before it starts from the Jets, you got to do it. And to me, it was just like, from having seen this Jets team play over and over again, I knew that was a massive, massive mistake. It's the first thing I thought about when you were bringing up how passive they were. Ken, you had something you wanted to talk about?
Can I just say something right there real quick? Because it's interesting. When you don't kill plays at the blue line, and even if you are killing plays at the blue line, this is where, when you start talking about goalies who play the puck well, they become a factor. So Soderblom cannot play the puck very well, guys. So any chip and chase that gets behind the Chicago D, even if it's just, in behind, like in the quadrant, it doesn't matter because he's just going up the wall. That's his only option. Like, chip it back into the pressure. That's where you need goaltenders who can get out and play pucks too. And don't underestimate how much more difficult that makes it on your defense.
Yeah, speaking of defense, I think because we have you here, first of all, thoughts on Declan Chisholm, and then I have a bigger picture question to follow. I thought Chisholm was great, his poise very evident, and it's funny. We knew he was a good skater at the AHL level, but man, that skating ability really looks like it could play. If he can make that his consistent kind of standard line or baseline, boy, I think if he can play like that, there could be an opening on the back end for him.
So first of all, I think it's his first NHL point today, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Yeah.
Congratulations to this kid. There's kids that you develop in your system that when they don't get enough early on, I don't want to say sulk, but let's just say they're not as motivated to keep plowing forward. Right? It's hard. This guy's getting called up, or I had a great training camp, and this guy's still playing ahead of me. Whatever the case may be. I liked his game today. I thought he transported the puck well. He got it to the net there in the offensive zone, a little bit of walk on the line, which is nice to see. So confidence, right? It's definitely in there. It should get better too. Now, let's put it in perspective though. The next game's harder than it was today. Okay. So even simple things like in the third period, the power play breakout, he takes it up the left hand wall. He kind of spins to his left. I can't remember who he dropped it to, but my point is he skated himself into a check and into like a box. And these types of things will get better with more legs. And we'll see how he can do it. You can't teach offense. Like, you can't teach that brain. You know, we can try and nurture it, but you can't teach it. He's got it. He's got character. He's persevering. I thought that was a nice story today.
And then just quickly as a follow-up, Jay, you've been involved in these meetings. How do these discussions go when you have a veteran like Schmidt who is well-liked, outside of the salary, whatever, he's played fairly steady, but he hasn't really get like 1 point in 20 games. So he hasn't given you that offensive boost that you're looking for. You have a young player with upside, but there are going to be errors and mistakes because he's a young guy. Like, take us behind the curtain on what this is like in terms of, not the management trying to force this guy on their team, but how does this kind of evolve in terms of whether the guy can take the job or if ultimately he won't, I guess. So what are those discussions like?
Well, similar to how you circled this game on your calendar today, so would have the Jets management team behind the scenes. So when you talk to Schmidt and you see how his game's playing out, you see results or lack thereof, like he's not fitting the category of play that the coaching staff are expecting out of him. And then you've got this other kid over here, a young guy who's been persevering, pushing it. This is a game they circle and say, if Schmidt isn't here by then, let's give this guy a chance. And he's earned that opportunity. You know what happens now, guys? I believe he's earned another opportunity. That's, from where I sit. And here's one thing I will say to you too. 2 points in November, 2 points at the beginning of December are just as valuable as 2 points in March. Don't think for 1 second that management teams, coaches, whatever, sit there and they fall in love with their entire roster to the point where they don't think they're putting out the best team that can win that night. So that's just the way that is. And he's a popular teammate, but we've all been around popular people in any industry, any walk of life. We all have popular people, but you got to get results. It's a results-driven business.
Jay, to the point that you've been making in a number of your last questions about it getting harder, this is something I'm glad you're on, because I've wanted an insider's take on this question, someone who's been around the game and knows the ups and downs of the season. The Winnipeg Jets over the last 3 games, and I would throw tonight in that, Ken, you can tell me whether you agree or not. There was a point of the season where they just looked, after about game 3 or 4, most of their games were them just kind of steamrolling the other team 5-on-5. Now, they weren't always coming out ahead in those games, but you could just see they really weren't playing nice. They weren't letting the other team play with the puck very often. Their puck possession numbers were just so good. We haven't seen that over the last little while. And I noticed like a game like and I talked about it on our last show, some little things that, the Edmonton Oilers were doing to relieve the pressure, and not just, the cheat code that is Connor McDavid, other things that they were doing, puck placement, dump-ins, those kind of things that kind of just changed the game around a little bit. And I wanted your take on around what time of the season other teams really get a good book on other teams, other successful teams, and enough games where, okay, this team went in and had success against the Winnipeg Jets. What did they do to have that? Then they've got that book, and the games start to get harder because all of a sudden that system that no one had kind of solved, everyone kind of solves it as a union. All these coaches around the league solve it as a union. So can you give me an idea of the timeline that this kind of stuff happens as the season goes on, and what teams do to counteract it once it does?
Yeah, this is a great discussion. So it's always done in segments, Sean. So, behind the scenes, we won't take a game here or a game there. So let me put something in perspective. Imagine Chisholm, for whatever reason today, had to be thrown out as a primary penalty killer. And I'm a pro scout in the building watching that, and he does a great job. Let's just imagine that. That's a one-off. That's not a habit. That's not something that's projects out. I always like to do it in 10-game segments to start the year, and then I start to break it down into 5. So even today, when I was doing my advanced scout and I knew we were all going to come on and talk together, I started breaking down the Jets in their last 5-game segments. So I play it out in 10 and I back it out to 5. So what has worked in those 5? What hasn't worked in those 5? And you can even go to the top of the lineup with a guy like Connor. So, he didn't score today. So that's 6 games played, no goals, right? Okay, why isn't he scoring goals? What can we do to make life more miserable on him to keep him off the score sheet? Is he in motion enough? Is he finding pucks in the slot area? Are people taking away time and space off the puck more often? Like getting to him quicker, if you get my drift? It's multi-layered, a lot of different tiers. Conversely, if I'm the Winnipeg Jets and I come in, riding a 3-game losing streak today, and I look at my body of work, I say, I don't feel like we've really played horrible hockey. Like it doesn't, I don't have that awful feeling in my gut. What can we do better? That's when I go back to the simplifying things, because I honestly believe that even Scheifele's line, they like to carry pucks in, right? They want to attack off the rush. They want to make plays. I get it. But they're also dash players, guys. Okay, so there's some risk reward there. I don't want to dummy down their game at all, but it's a team result that we require. So sometimes let's get it deep, because I know the Chicago Blackhawks are going to struggle down low in their zone. Even my skill guys are heavy enough. And if they're not, they're quick enough to make them work down low, and we can create turnovers. So I'm trying to give you like all these different layers. And I'll give you another one, like the Soderblom thing. I talked about a goalie who doesn't play a puck. When you're dummying down your game, when you want to simplify, and you know that the opposition goaltender doesn't play a puck, there isn't a single defenseman in the NHL who loves it when a puck gets chipped in behind him, his goalie can't make a play for him, and he gets run over by Lowry or Appleton or anybody else to play. Nobody loves that. So, sometimes less is more, and you still get a big result.
Jay, a lot of talk in the center of the universe about Chris Tanev being a fit, people playing connect the dots with Brad Treliving, the connection there, obviously, some connecting him to Vancouver. I cannot help but wonder if he's a fit for the Jets. I mean, not just because he spent one season with the Manitoba Moose when I was covering the team, but to me, he totally changes the dynamic of the defense core and could really slot guys in properly, if you will, if the Jets could go after that. Tell me I'm right or wrong.
Well, you're 100% right. We're talking about one of my favorite guys in the entire league. He's a total throwback, right? Like blocking shots with his face this week, gets zippered for 12 or whatever. And then he comes back the next day, he's blocking with his back. I mean, this guy makes any team better, Kenny. And the thing is, in the West, it really is a good fit if the Jets can go shopping there. I find like there's more run and gun skill in the East. There's a few exceptions, but I feel like the heavy hard is more in the West. And wow, if they can, and you know what? I understand how they build this out in Winnipeg. Trust me, I've been around this staff for my entire career, and I understand the city, and I understand we want to get guys in the mold that want to stay. We want them to be a Winnipeg Jet, and that means something different than being a Dallas Star. Okay, like a Dallas Star can spill out into the community, and they're just like you and me walking down the street, right? But in Winnipeg, like this is like when I worked for the Sioux Greyhounds, those kids couldn't go anywhere in Sault Ste. Marie. It's like a community thing. You know what I mean? Chris Tanev would fit right in. It would be, if they could ever pull it off, I'd spend the assets to do it. It's the type of player that'll help you win a playoff round, or 2 or 3. You never know.
Ken, I'm good on the night.
Just a quick one, just before we get and we texted about it. Any just thoughts on the start of the year for Rutger McGroarty? I know the injury thing is kind of up in the air, but what have you thought about? He seems like he's in the Hobie discussion based on the start of the year, but what have you seen from the games you watched of his?
It's been a 2-year growth, Kenny. Quicker to space, big body, going to the crease, battling, leader. He's doing a whole bunch of things really well. I hope he's okay. I'm going to be at World Juniors. If you guys are interested, circle back. I'll be at World Juniors in Sweden for the 12 days. I'd love to be on with you, and we can talk about some Jets prospects that I'm seeing at the World Juniors. Fingers crossed that McGroarty is healthy enough by then. I'm understanding through my contacts today that it's just it's a day-to-day, it's a tailbone type issue, and it's like a deep if I had, I'm not a doctor. I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night, but I'm not a doctor. Deep bone bruise type thing on the tailbone is what I'm hearing. So hopefully everything's gonna be okay here.
And sorry, I said last one, but just because I was talking with a couple of scouts about it today, what are your thoughts on Nikita Chibrukov's start? Because to me, he's the one prospect we don't talk enough about, given his skill set, but also there's a bite to his game and some snarl where, down the road, he's kind of middle six-ish kind of forward, but he can also give you a little bit of grit too. I'm just curious on your thoughts. He's obviously been really productive, but what are you hearing about his game so far?
Skill with a little bit of rat. He's got to clean up some deficiencies at the North American ice surface, but you can't teach what he brings offensively. Play driver. He's got almost 50 shots on goal. I think he's been on a heater recently, right, for a long period of time. And I know you guys want to go, but I want to end it with this. If we can get Chibrikov on the big team, okay, and he has some success, it brings into conversation the Dmitry Rashevsky situation at Moscow Dynamo. When you have a Russian on your roster who can communicate with another Russian, how great things are going, how productive, I'm happy, this is a great spot to be, it goes a long, long way.
No doubt. Jay, that was absolutely awesome. I got to tell you, I'm very, very happy. You agreed 100%, you said, with Ken on his Tanev take, because inadvertently you absolutely shredded his break up the third line take, which I have been giving him a hard time for months on the show. It's nice to get a pro to clear things up, because he's got some of the people who watch this show under his spell, and they were trying to follow him down that to a place they never should have followed. So, Jay, it's great to have you come in here and show reality to some of the people who don't want to look at it and see it that way here.
Boys, I love it. Thanks for having me on. Don't break up that line, because you're going to be, it's going to be awful to watch. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Love it. Love it. Thanks again, my man. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Time.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Talk soon. See ya.
See ya. Ken,
master class right there. Master class. Tremendous.
What did I say though? Like, I can tell you this, when Sammy comes on, everyone knows they're going to love it. When Jay comes on, I can tell you this, you are going to learn not one, not two. You're going to learn like 15 things that you didn't know. And that question about, kind of as the season goes on and how teams start to kind of pick apart teams' game, no better person to talk to him. Talk to about that than him. Hey, give Sweet Lou a shout out before we get rolling here.
Sounds good. For the folks who have realty needs they'd like to have met, please contact our main man Lou Furlan at Real LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office 204-989-5000. His email is lou@loufurlan.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Furlan, tremendous realtor, tremendous human being, and tremendous supporter of the community. When you call him or see him, tell him Kenny and Renny sent you. And
buying or selling, Kenny?
Yeah, buying. This comes courtesy in my inbox from Doug Henderson, a recent winner of something we'll get to in a minute. Buying Cole Perfetti north of 25 goals.
Ooh, nice. I like it.
Nice job by Doug.
Buying as well. I'm buying as well. I'm buying Jay Bukala's not breaking up the third line. I think that was just a phenomenal thing. That needed to be said. So I'm buying that. And I would also like to transition, of course, to the Pristine Roofing wake-up call, which is what you saw Jay Bukala give Ken Reed tonight. On
tremendous,
for breaking up the third line.
Yep,
that's the Pristine Roofing wake-up call, no doubt about it. And of course, that means it is time for you to give North End Rick the Pristine Roofing wake-up call at 1-204-981-6289. Wake them up, get them out there, because if you've got any issues with your siding, your exteriors, your roofing, North End Rick's the guy to talk to who can get Pristine Roofing down, who will do a pristine job. They're named Pristine for a reason. If you don't want to get a hold of Rick, get a hold of Pristine Roofing at 204-237-7663. But why would you not want to get a hold of Rick? Great guy. And I want to say this out there, North End Rick lost his pup. That is tough sledding. I know what it's like. A house never feels, I said this to him, a house never feels more quiet than when suddenly there isn't the sound of tip-tapping paws across the linoleum floor or the hardwood floor. It's like losing a family member. So Rick, I'm thinking about you, buddy. Okay. Let us, Ken, talk quickly about where did I want to go with this? I want to talk about Sandberg. We haven't talked about him enough. I thought tonight was just another night, and I kind of going back to the idea, I don't think we overly talked about it in that Oilers game. There's a lot of metrics that are showing him to be one of the best defensemen in the game. He's the guy that we should be buying where he's at. What has the found money that he has created as a defensive force for the Winnipeg Jets allowed for the rest of this team and the rest of this decor?
Yeah, Sean, I mean, today is another good example, and I would say this. There have been a couple of hiccups for Dylan Sandberg this week. There was the icing prior to the Velarde penalty, and today, obviously, he had the turnover on the first goal by Bedard. But what I love about Sandberg is his ability to park a mistake or something that doesn't turn out and not let it sink him. Young players, Connor Bedard's goal happens at 4:39 of the first period. So if you're not confident in your own skin or know the coaching staff trusts you, you get tentative. And Dylan Sandberg does not get tentative. He continues to play hard. He gets rewarded with an assist on the insurance goal by Perfetti. He's playing on a pairing with the guy he's maybe played a little bit before in the minors, but it's a big assignment for Dylan Sandberg to be playing with the fellow, a rookie essentially, even though they're comfortable with one another and everything else. I love the way that he's playing. His outlet passes are something that I think is a little bit underrated with his game. He's a big, strong guy, and I've used this comparison before. I don't know that he's going to get to the level of Jacob Trouba in terms of the physical nature that he can play with, but this is a guy that I would say in the next year or two, you're going to realize he is a big, strong... We saw it with his hit on Tim Stützle in the preseason. This is a big, strong man. He's mobile, and he has some sneaky offense. Like, not your Quinn Hughes end-to-end, or not your Josh Morrissey end-to-end offense, but this is a guy that's going to be a top 4 defenseman, by probably as early as next season full-time. And it's important for the Jets, especially because... Let's not kid ourselves. The Jets' defense is in a bit of a transition. So the quicker he can get to being a top 4 defenseman, then we'll start to see some of the other things happen with Elias Solomonson and guys like that. So I think he's really elevated. And hey, that when Elliot Friedman is calling you for 32 thoughts to talk, people are noticing how you're playing.
No doubt. He shrugged someone off in that Oilers game. I can't remember who it was, but it was a significant player, and he made it look like he wasn't even doing it. He was so calm about it. I just thought to me, that's that sign of a defensive player that is like, you see the calmness that really skilled players show in pulling off plays early on. Let's use Connor Bedard as an example. The calmness with which he pulls off that move where I think he puts it through Ehlers' legs, button hooks, turns around and does the cross-ice backhand pass, how calm he was when he did that. The calmness that I saw in Dylan Sandberg pulling off that move really just made me think like, this is that guy that for years you're just going to be like, well, he's on the ice, we just don't get to score right now.
Right.
You have to wait till he goes off. That's the level that I think he's heading to when you see that kind of confidence and how he's playing with as few games in the league. It makes it easy for a team when you've got a guy like that who can anchor and hold things down. You really don't have to worry about things back there. And hey, we wanted to give a quick shout out to the team.
Today.
Yeah. We wanted to give a quick shout out to the team at Cambrian Credit Union from answering members' calls in less than 1 minute to having all their advisors available by video from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. It makes it so easy to be a Cambrian member. It is obvious that the whole team at Cambrian cares about giving you great service. Well done, Cambrian. Okay, moving on from that, let's just touch on, actually, we probably are running out of time. So why don't you give me your Johnson Group Got You Covered play of the game?
Yeah, you know what? Got you covered. I think this is I like a lot of things here. I like Connor Hellebuck and his ability to regroup after a tough goal the other night. I like Declan Chisholm coming into the lineup and immediately making an impact. So I'm going to give that as a joint effort. I don't know that there was a specific play that I had in mind, but I like the way that both those two guys played in this game today. But you know what? Hang on. The We've Got You Covered is welcome to Winnipeg, Connor Bedard. Dylan DeMello likes the way that you tried to beat him, but he put you on your behind. So that was a don't worry, Connor Hellebuck. I've got the young guy covered. And what I loved is that he tapped Bedard afterward. He's like, that was a good try.
Yeah.
But keep working at it. That's my got you covered. Sorry, I had to talk my way through it. It was a classic moment. And I think it's one of those, in the moment, I'm not sure Bedard appreciated it, but I think that's the one where you go back to when you're sitting on the plane today on the next flight, you're kind of thinking, that was pretty good by DeMello. That was pretty funny.
Yeah. Hey, I think you missed maybe the most significant, maybe most obvious. We've got you covered of the entire year. Ken,
oh, goodness.
I can understand how. But what I would suggest would be Jay Bukala coming on the show and letting you know that your take on breaking up the third line is absolutely out of bounds.
You want to make it the lamplighter while we're at it? Do you want to make it the lamplighter too?
All the awards.
Okay,
the awards for
yes,
this show.
yes.
Moving on. Let's go to the keg save of the game.
Keg save of the game was, Hellebuck had a beauty on somebody. I'm having a little bit of trouble deciphering. Was it on Bavil? I think it was on.
I believe it was Bavillier.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah, that was a good one there.
Tweeted about it. Yeah.
Indeed, yes. I'm pretty sure it was on Bavillier. A good shot in the slot. Really good save. Honorable mention to Soderblom for the stick save on Scheifele, which in real time didn't look like much, but not off the paddle. It was off the top of the stick. It was an absolute laser beam going for the top blocker side, and it just hit the part just below the knob and shot out of play. So honorable mention there.
I gotta say, there's nothing I hated more playing hockey than beating a goaltender and it ricocheting off the knob of the stick. That is the worst feeling in the world, because you know that every goaltender after that is trying to tell you that he did it on purpose, and you know that they're just lucky. Hey, Transcona Pauly, I see you sitting there right now being like, but I did save it with the stick handle, with the knob of the stick. No, you didn't. No goalie in the history of the game has ever purposely saved the puck with the knob of their stick. Don't even give me that. That to me is although I'll give it to the keg save of the game. That's Ken's save of the game. We want to hear yours. Why? Well, if you share with us your keg save of the game, you're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate available to use at any of the fine 3 keg locations in the city, each location finer than the last. And that brings us to the winner of our keg save of the game from our last show. And Ken, this person, I know at some point had wrote that she was on Team Renny. That's not why she's winning. And actually, I'm not even sure. I shouldn't be saying a she because it's a neutral name. But it said that they were on Team Renny. I just want to get this out there. This isn't why they won. You've seen T. Will's got awards in the past here. If I had the control, you wouldn't see T. Will winning anything around here. So I've got no control over this. Lottery balls fall where they do. And they fell this time in the direction of A Loves Winnipeg. A Loves Winnipeg. You have won a $50 gift certificate to the keg, but you got to claim it or it goes back into the pot. To claim it, you direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me, of course, your email address, and we will get you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine locations of the keg here in Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. Ken, you and I, we're getting close to that supper. I can taste it already. I'm pretty excited. Moving on to the lamplighter. Ken, what do you got?
Yeah, you know what? I think I'm going. There's several. All three Jets goals are great candidates. I'm gonna actually go with the Morgan Barron birthday boy special through the 5-hole. Nice shot, but just an absolutely exceptional pass by Nikolai Ehlers to spring Barron for the rush itself. I mean, we talked about it with Jason Bukala. Incredible tip by Perfetti, and the play that Gabriel Velarde makes along the boards on the toe drag against Alex Vlasic, exceptional. But Morgan Barron's goal, And as Tracy Okranik just pointed out, bad news for Morgan. On his birthday, his brother just scored. So Rick Bonus will be back to beaking him. Yeah, he got there it is. Yeah, there it is.
Oh my goodness. Hey, I'll tell you something right now. You know who's sitting at home thinking that he got jinxed by the head coach is assistant coach Scott Arneal, because he is a big time worries about stuff like that and brings it up. I talked about it on the podcast, how like maybe I jinxed them with the breakaway the other game. You better believe that Scott Arneal's sitting there saying, don't say it, Bones. You say it, it comes true. Anyway, great pick for the Lamplighter. I couldn't agree with you more. The secret sauce for that, and it shouldn't be so secret, but that was a phenomenal pass by Nick Ehlers.
In speed.
The timing of him getting it at that time just to get it onside, but the 2 sticks that he had to beat to get it there, that was a precise, ridiculously hard pass. That is that's glorious. That is absolutely glorious. So I agree with you, Ken. That's the Lamplighter of the night. I will say this. You should tell us out there your Lamplighter of the night. Why? Well, if you do, you're automatically entered to win a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. If you can't wait for Kenny and Renny to gift you your own frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, you know what to do. Head on down to TransCanada Brewing Company. Join them in their tap room at 1290 Keniston, where they have copious amounts of Lamplighter. They've also got other great beers and great food down there. You want to go check it out. Hey, if you want to check it out, you should check it out with us at our Kenny and Renny live podcast, December 10th.
Next Sunday.
10th. It's coming up just over a week from now. Pack that room, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get down there. We want to have just an absolute blast, and we want to have as many as you as can be there along for the ride. So you know what to do. Go here to Eventbrite. Copy this if you can, or otherwise just say Kenny and Renny, December 10th, Eventbrite. You'll find the tickets there. Join us. We want to see you down there. It's going to be great. And that means it's time to dole out the Lamplighter from our last show. And the winner would be Top Line Media, which I think is Nick Lynham. Congratulations, Nick, a guy who I think may just be at that December to remember. December to dismember.
He said he'll be there.
Kenny and Renny holiday / Christmas party. It's going to be great to see him down there. Great to see everybody else. It was great to see everyone in here tonight. I did want to say something. Oh, before I shut this down, it was called for. I just want to hear some really good music before we go. James E says, how about the headband? Not see Renny rocking the look, but to hear Tristan Rivers music. You're going to see both. You're going to hear both. Let's do it here. Let's make it a Sean's headband version of the Kenny and Renny show. I did, before we go, Ken, I wanted to be, and I don't want to bring it back to this because I felt like I started the show with a bummer talking about that thing, and I don't like talking about it. I did notice in the chat room, I really appreciate the support, people. A lot of you out there saying that I'm all class, that I'm, honorable journalist. It's great to have fooled all of you. That's good stuff to have pulled that off. There was some talk in there, and I shared everything that I could about this situation, but talk of people like getting in and asking about who said this or who said that or did these things. I don't want to, I can tell you right now, I feel like it happened to me online where people kind of like start trying to target you for something that doesn't need to be done. The situation, to me, as I see it, has been dealt with. Conversations have been had. I see it. It doesn't matter to me how the other people involved in this see it. I see it as mistakes having been made. I don't think that they were mistakes that were intended. I just think they are mistakes that need to be cared for. I don't want to turn this into any kind of witch hunt situation. This is a solved situation in my mind. I appreciate the support. Let's leave it at that, and let's move on from this to more important and interesting things to talk about. And the reason we get to talk about those things in this space If you appreciate us talking about those things in this space, please appreciate our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space. For us, that's Vittorio Rossi, Pristine Roofing, Sweet Lou Furlan, Cambrian Credit Union, the Johnson Group, the Keg, and of course, TransCanada Brewing Company. Thank you so much to them for all the support we've got. They definitely make us feel extremely supported, as does everyone in the chat room, as does everyone who picks this up and watches it later. It means a ton to us. It's great to see here. It's great to spend this time with you, and we can't wait to do it over again. A Rogers game, a Sportsnet game Monday as the Jets take on the Carolina Hurricanes. Monday Night Hockey. Ken, we've got something to say before we go.
Yeah, thanks again to Jason Bukala. It was just absolutely tremendous. And, I'll be out of town on Monday, but Sammy the Scarf, I believe, will be in the building and will be joining us, I believe.
Absolutely perfect.
Have a great show, my man.
Ending to a perfect show. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody out there. We will see you after the game on Monday. Bye-bye.